Hi, Sheila.
Hello,
Hi,
hello.
Christine. Hi, everyone who's watching after our recording. I'm Amy Johnson, and we are here for our October 11th, 11/11, Living Our Values. I need to take a few deep breaths. Who else needs to do that with me?
I absolutely do. Let's do it. Let's do it. Yes.
Because living our values is about being centered and grounded. So to me, that has to happen in the body. So, all right, let's take one deep breath in. And you can breathe out through your mouth. Breathe in through your nose. Breathe out through your mouth. And then one more, in through the nose. And then out through the mouth. Feel your feet on the floor, all four corners of your feet. Feel your sits bones in your chair. If you want, reach your arms up so that you can feel the sides of your body. And then I like to end these with a big hug. Like, give yourself a big hug. I think we all could use a hug.
Mm-hmm.
You can switch arms and give yourself a hug the other way. You don't always think about hugging yourself. And we're here.
We are here. Yes. Love
Yeah.
it.
It's I'm glad to be here with all of you and two beautiful ladies and whoever else joins us in the next hour. And this is a place that we created, Sheila and I, to talk about what it means to live our core values. As I said in the email I sent out, to live our core values takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of commitment, which we talked about last month. It takes a lot of motivation and really honoring who we are at our deepest self, our truest self, and how to put that out in the world. I define core values in this work somewhat differently than is out there, but I talk about them as reflections of what matters most to us, as the words and phrases that connect us to the version of ourself that is the highest, our best self. Not in an aspirational way, but in a real practical way, in a way that we can access that is within us always and within all of us, even if we don't see it demonstrated at all times. It's the divine. So our core values help us do that, to make, to create a set of core values that has that vibration, that has that resonance. We have to define them from an inside out process. We have to do it in a way that's intentional and clear. And that's why I created the mapping your inner compass process, a way to really get clear about what our core values are. Because a lot of times the values we have aren't ours. They are inherited through culture. They're inherited through family. They're inherited through advertising, media, all sorts of things. And people in our lives who we love, not necessarily with bad intent. Sometimes it's just not ours, and we see the world differently than what we thought we did or were told we were supposed to. So part of the process I created is a sorting of like, oh, this is resonating with me and this one isn't. And we talked about that a little bit last month because it is an important piece of values work that I don't hear talked about a whole lot. Like clearly identifying that the values we hold are ours. And it doesn't mean they could still be the same as our family or our culture or something we see out in the world, but we're taking the time to ask and inquire and define and own it for ourselves rather than accept it blindly, because there's far too often that we are reactive based on something we don't even know we fully understand in our systems. So, and then the third part of the process is to live our values, is to really, like I talked about before, commit intentionally, not do it perfectly, but show up regularly to see what that means, even when it's difficult. And we know it's difficult. That's why we have these conversations, right? Not because it's something that's easy to say, but what we're doing here is moving from this aspirational place of like, oh, maybe someday I can do that, or I aspire to live my values, but it's not for right now, to, okay, I'm going to do that today. And in this next hour, we talk about how that's possible, how to take incremental steps to be more in alignment than out of alignment with who we really are, and how we define what that means to us and what matters to us. Because it's often a lot of little things that build up. Sometimes they're big decisions that show us in our face, oh, wow, I was out of alignment with myself in that job, or something big that we're confronted with regularly, or a person who I'm married to. But, that's a different conversation.
That's a long conversation.
Conversation. You're welcome to have here. Those are kind of the big ones, but a lot of times it's the little decisions that make up the direction of, well, whether or not we're in alignment with ourselves and how we see things and how we can shift. Because when we're in alignment, it feels better. We feel better.
Yes.
Feel more connected, right? Well, how do you feel when you're in alignment, Sheila? What are some ways?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Just connected, so much more peaceful, so much more empowered, so much more capable. Like there's a lot of possibilities with alignment. And when I'm feeling out of alignment, and there's an expansion. So when I'm out of alignment, I feel contracted.
Yes.
I feel shrinking. I feel like there's not a lot of possibilities. It gets more black and white. It's not as fluid. So
Right.
alignment provides all this fluidity and this grace, and everything else is just beautiful.
Exactly.
Yes, I much prefer alignment to not
Out of alignment, yeah.
Misalignment. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, right. And Christine, do you want to say how you felt when you're in alignment too? And then I'll share what I was.
Oh, I feel wonderful. I feel wonderful. And I'm probably in alignment more now that I am retired, which is a joke, but but I have the time, and I keep telling myself, well, if you don't do it now,
right. Yeah.
got to do it now.
It is about the now.
The now.
It is very much about being in the present and doing it now, and not waiting for another time, waiting to leave the job, waiting for this, but doing it in the moment, even when we don't want to do it. We talked about not wanting to do things last month, and we'll talk back to that too. And what I also appreciate about this conversation of alignment or out of alignment is it takes it away, like certainly out of alignment doesn't feel good, but it takes it away from good or bad, right or wrong, black or white. It's more about, when you're in alignment, it's about calibrating to get in alignment if we find ourselves out of alignment. It's of course correcting. It's saying, oh, okay, we are moving towards alignment. Or if we're moving away from it, we're going to go back to alignment. It's not so black and white, like you're right, I'm wrong, I'm wrong, you're right. Like there's not a conflict there. It's like Sheila said, it's much more fluid. It doesn't feel good when we're out of alignment, but we know where alignment is because we've done the internal work to define the compass, define what that is. And what's interesting about a compass, that way I talk about it here, is one would think that it's each the north, south, east, west, each point on the compass is a value. What I like to say is it's actually when they're all aligned together, that's the kind of true north. So you calibrate, each one is on their own wheel. And so they each point north when they're in alignment. So it's about the alignment, moving in different directions. And we just said what it feels like when we're in alignment. It feels like flow, connection, good, satisfied, fulfilled, present, being here, human. So those are the things that I think are so important to remember about the work that we're doing here. I say this to remind myself too, because it's easy to get off track, right? And there's so much in the world we can't control.
Right.
And
Mhm.
this is something we can move towards control. We're moving towards alignment or moving away from alignment kind of thing. And everything in between. That's the calibration. So that's where I wanted to start today, because I think that's where the peace lies. I think that's where we can navigate uncertain times and unsettling moments and turn off some of the noise too. I'm gonna let Terry in. And be here to move forward in our lives. So I want to start with last week. Hi, Terry. Nice to see you. Last week, we talked about how to do a reset in September. We talked about different commitments to ourselves to do every day or a little bit each day, and how to help us use our values to define what those are and feel good about them. And I wondered if anyone had an experience with that in the last month, aligned or not. I'll share mine if someone else doesn't want to go first. Does anyone have something to contribute or thought about, even if you thought about it since our last session here?
You can go first.
You want me to go first? Okay. I committed to drinking more water. And to me, that was for sure 64 ounces of water plus teas and other drinks in the day. And I felt so much better doing that. I really did. I had to not drink that as much during later in the day. I did notice there was a consequence for that at night, but it felt so good to do it. I also fell off a little bit. I went away spontaneously last weekend to Sun Valley, Idaho, and it was much harder when I didn't have the jars that I used to measure to know how much water I had. And I could feel the difference in my body when I didn't have that. But I didn't erase all the great work I had done before because I missed a few days and started again. And I don't think I did the full 64 yesterday, which was my first full day back, but I'll start up again today because it feels so good. And it really is aligned with my value of sustainability. I am far more functional, present, happy, and feel good when I have more water in my system. And it helps me just feel connected to my body too. So it's in alignment with my value of connection as well. And flourish too, because I hope my face will look more dewy, now that it's dried out, right? I can be vain just like everybody else. But not everyone else, but maybe you're not, I don't know, I can be. But hydration is key, especially as I get older. So in all those ways, it really it worked for me, and I didn't do it perfectly. I'm not going to sit here and give myself, stars or not, but I would say overall, I moved towards alignment than out of alignment at the, as we look at month to month. So did anyone else, who else wants to share a small change they made in the last month or didn't make in the last month and what that felt like too?
I am doing more of the commitment to, I talked about writing and I did not make the writing at all. I think I talked about writing last month, but what I did do was start to focus on my daily movement again. So I like to walk on the beach, and I've kind of gotten into the thing that if I, can't do this amazingly long walk on the beach, then I sometimes don't do anything, right? So it was around expanding what it means to just have that physical movement and giving myself permission to do different things. Like, so I danced sometimes it was a combination of, walking to Trader Joe's and walking to the farmer's market and just doing that combined to be like, okay, I've got 60 minutes worth of movement today. So I got this little, my watch helps me to see how close or how far away I am from meeting that goal every day. And so it's like, I got to move some more. So sometimes it's just walking back and forth or dancing or doing something else just to get my body moving again and to get to those 60 minutes every day. And it does feel great. I just find that I'm at a point right now, and it's, there's always things that come up for people, but when I'm under more stress, there's more things happening in my life. It's imperative. I must get into physical activity because I notice it when I'm not. I notice it. I feel it. The quality of my sleep, everything, the quality of my focus, it all, and just feeling that energy, just like that calmness versus feeling the adrenaline or whatever's pumping in there when something's happening. I'm thinking about it, just helps tremendously. So I've really been working on doing that.
That's fabulous. And
Yeah.
it shows how it just, sometimes we have ideas of what we're supposed to do, and then life shows us where we need to start in a different way. And which one of your values is it? Grow and flourish? Which one of your values does
it is activate, healing, and well-being, and grow and flourish. Yeah, so both of those, right? Yeah. And also interesting enough is also inviting beauty into every moment, because especially when I'm walking, when I'm just wherever I am, I'm always constantly looking around and just scanning. I'm looking at people, I'm looking at everything, the sky and the whatever little things I haven't noticed before, and that just always brings me right into the present moment, and I can find beauty in that.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's and does it feel different for you when you attach it to a value, the movement?
It does, because it is all about my well-being. It's about well-being and just really activating that, and it is healing. So it is around, this is what I need to do for my body on a regular basis, because this promotes well-being. And I need that. I need to enter into every experience, bringing my best self, right? I want to have longevity. So it's these are the things that have to be done over and over and over again to make sure that it happens for me. Yeah.
Right. And when we align or attach or connect a value to an action like that, like to movement, daily movement, it elevates it from something I have to do, should do, it's better for me to do, to something that is about that well-being, that best self, best version of you. It elevates the vibration of the activity from checking it off of a list from a to-do, even if it's the same activity, it gives it that higher level energy that shines through, right? And then you can say, okay, yes, this is more, I'm living each day in alignment because I'm taking this action.
Yeah. And just put the shoes on. First step.
Put the shoes on.
Put the shoes on.
Once
the shoes are on, it's okay.
Right.
Put the shoes on. Yeah, that's the start.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's
absolutely.
Christine, did you?
So last month we talked about, I said my value was self-care.
Right.
And one of the things I was going to do was also drink more water. I didn't do 100 ounces every day, but on the days that I did, I noticed the brilliance. I noticed the value of it. I noticed what would manifest in my life. And so I keep trying. Yeah. And so some days I get there, and then the days that I don't, in the evening when I do my self-talk before I go to bed, I just say, well, you didn't get it all today, but you're going to try again tomorrow, because you know what the value is. Another value that I was consciously working on is, and I'm not sure what this value is, but there was a phrase when I was younger, each one, teach one. And I always told myself, you know something, you have some value, and you know something that you can share with somebody else. And then half of the time I diminish myself and say, oh, they already know that. Oh, everybody knows that. And when I start to share and do what I told myself to do, years ago, which is share what you know, there's always somebody who seems to get value. So I say all that to say, I was doing the book club, book reading and mastermind group. And I was nervous about it, but I kept talking myself into do your best, just show up and do your best. And of the people that are there, somebody is going to get value from it. And so now it's over. There were 3 sessions and I felt very good about it. I felt very good about me intentionally showing up completely. And so I think maybe that's the value. Show up completely, show up fully. Don't diminish yourself and cheat yourself out of giving your gift.
Right.
Don't cheat yourself out of learning something or experiencing something. Show up fully. So I did, and I felt very good about that.
That's great. It's beautiful to hear. And it is, I mean, your value, maybe it can be a phrase like each one, teach one. It could be show up. It's whatever resonates with you that lights you up the most. You know, when we go through the process, I don't know if you haven't done the full process, have you, with us? I don't.
No, well, we did it in a Divapreneurs meeting, but I'm sure that wasn't the full process.
Right. Yeah. So maybe you'll want to join us the next time, but we'll do our quest in March. But yeah, either one of those can work. And for now, just pick one that feels, put them, choose which one feels right and see how it resonates for you. It's kind of, I look at the values that we choose for our set of values as they light us up. They're like the full body, yes, like when you're just like, yes. And that really helps find who we are, because we know in ourselves there are yes. And so it's that's how we can tell that it's
something else you said just a few minutes ago about, well, what I heard was these are your values. And so you may be in a room full of people and nobody else has your values. No, they have their values.
Correct.
And so some people will be pushing for their thing. And I used to push back, but now I don't. And I'm so proud of myself because it's not productive. I stopped pushing back and I just let them be them. But when I am me, I'm very, very happy. When I'm in alignment, I'm very happy.
That's so beautiful and clear. And that's the clarity that comes from doing this work too, right? Because when you know your values, you're able to see better when someone is coming towards you, pushing their values onto you. Even more so, because you're like, wait a second, that they may use even the same word, self-care. And it's not about self-care for you because you know what self-care means to you.
Exactly what it means to me. Yeah.
And so that even if I've heard that before, people are like, oh, we share the same value of self-care, but her definition of self-care is very different than what mine is. But because I have that clarity, I don't have to judge her. I can keep the boundary clearer and not fall into that.
Yes.
Because it's not the same, even if the word is the same.
Yes.
That empowers, that's how we get empowered through this work. That's how we're able to, like you said, be ourselves and stand in that clarity and navigate when everyone around us is kind of like, seems like they're losing their minds, and we can see it, but we're not sure what's going on. So the self-clarity is so valuable because we are not going to be as easily manipulated by words. Same words. I think you see it a lot in politics. Where freedom gets co-opted quite a bit. But when we define if it's one of our values or where in our values it lies, it's so much clearer what we mean by freedom than what someone else does if they're trying to, or someone trying to sell us something. That happens a lot too, marketing. Yeah. So that was a great point to bring up. And I'm glad you're feeling that alignment, because we know what it feels like when we're aligned or not. And what that feels like. Or we certainly know what it's like when we're not aligned, for sure. If someone's watching this and hasn't really felt that alignment, it's possible. So Terry, are you there? Are you in a place you want to share a bit of between last month and this month? Have you committed to something or doing something differently? You're muted, but I don't know if you're able to.
Hmm.
Is she frozen now?
No, I think she's frozen. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just come back.
Back to her. So, oh, there she is. You're moving again. Do you want to unmute?
Okay, I got it.
Good.
So self-care is always the top of my list. I have not gotten to the gym all week this week. My sister was in the hospital for 4 days, and that kind of set everything on a different rhythm. And going to the gym, that's drinking water, all of those things I have on my list. I did go to Mighty Minds workshop 3 times and went to the one in person and was delighted. Just, I felt like I met a whole group of people who I'd already met online, but it's so different to meet in person.
Mhm.
And I have made a commitment to find new ways to connect with people. And I felt like that commitment came through really strongly. Both Cynthia and Christine were there. And I just loved being there and have some new commitments from that. And a lot of them have to do with being more involved in a more complete way with Toastmasters, because I've hesitated to go online with Pathways, and now I think I have an almost neighbor person who will help me break through that barrier. And let's see. Oh, I was just talking to a friend of mine about Israel and Palestine, and just how did we get here again? And that seems to be top of a lot of people's mind. And how can we be a force for good in that dilemma? Those kinds of things
Yeah.
are,
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad you found way, that is self-care, going to something. I don't know what mindful minds.
Mighty.
my minds.
Minds. Yeah. I don't know what that is, but it sounds cool. And I'm glad you got a lot out of that. And
Well, Jovita Jenkins, who's in Toastmasters occasionally, wrote a book called Get Out of Your Own Way. And this is a group of women who got together over that, discussing the book.
oh, is that what your
Right. That was the same group.
Oh,
that was what the group was called?
mastermind.
Mastermind.
Oh, masterminds. Okay, Mighty. It turned into Mighty in my stumbling
I love it.
brain. My
That is Christine's group. Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, that's full circle, right? See, Christine, how what a powerful. So, when you live in your vibe, you live showing up, or
Christine led the whole thing and did such a good job.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really beautiful.
So it's it is, you do have an impact. And
Excuse me 1 second.
Yeah.
717 Council Street. That would be across the street. Yeah, Council is across the street.
Amy, can you mute her, please?
I'm sorry.
okay, there we go. Thank you. Oh yeah, Sheila, I'll make you co-host. I forgot to make you co-host. Sorry. Those moments. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to dive the conversation too much into current situations, but I don't think we can have, I do believe also values are pertinent conversation in the turbulence in the world. So it's kind of a duality. And I think that's the world, or the dialectical. The values are an important part of the conversation, our personal values, because that's something we can control, what we can do, where does that look like, and how to participate in or not in other conversations about really complex issues that are getting overly simplified. And social media is creating, you know, for my own sustainability and well-being, I've tried to stay off of social media. So I didn't even put our group on for today on social media, because it's not been a good place for me right now, or that it's unsustainable for me. But I also, and that's what I wanted to talk about. Like we all said in different ways how we find peace when we are in alignment with ourselves. And, you know, the peace within can be reflected out of ourselves. I do think there are forces that are all over the world that are motivated by greed and difficult things that are not being talked about right now, power, greed, things like that. But I don't consider those values. I consider them out of not values. They're ways of being that are destructive and harmful. But if we talk about values as principles that are connecting us to our highest good, that's a different kind of thing. Doesn't mean you can't value money or abundance or things like that, but greed and power are a whole other type of thing. And I'm not hearing that in the conversation. I'm hearing a lot of no conversation, actually, not much conversation. But there is hope I do see in, you know, I look at my own values. Where can I find connection at a place like this? At the mastermind that Christine created. Anytime we go to a Toastmasters meeting and are gathering together, those are opportunities to connection and remembering where we are present in the moment. And each of us may have a lot of feelings about what's going on, but it's like Christine was saying earlier, it's not like putting it on anybody else. It's our job to hold that and hold our own feelings. And for me, my values of connection allows someone else to have their feeling. My own value of integrity allows the integrity of that separation between myself and another too, to allow others. And it's not, none of it's easy, because I do think it's the dialectical, like more than one thing can be true at the same time. And those are nuanced conversations. And there are things that are not right across the board happening in our world that any human being can look at and say, this is not okay. This is not how a world is going to be built of love and humanity and caring. What the causes and the reasons for that, you know, are many, but and that can be well debated and how to fix that. But the humanity, and if our values are to connect us to our divine, seeing the humanity in each of us is a good place to start. And what that can look like. And everybody has their path to grieving. Everybody has their path to sorrow and taking in the information and allowing a space for that, which social media is not a place for that. And that's a good thing to acknowledge. So if anyone wants to chime in or share their experience or questions, or there's a different point of view on this, that's what this is for. It's to say, okay, how can I use my values? Value is collaboration. One of my values is collaboration. How can we collaborate a way through this to see and do things differently where we are? For the moment, we are right here all together in this alternate universe of Zoom, sitting in our respective homes. So with the privilege of water to have if we need it, right? And not everyone has that. And can we feel that and feel the sorrow and loss of life and outrage at as the civilians, the people, everyone just like us across who are suffering from other people's, what I would say the problem is greed and power. But so far, that's not the conversation being out there. And that's an opinion. Opinion's different than anything. But from a values perspective, right? We can use our values to look through what we're seeing. How can I look for connection? I saw, and I haven't had a chance to post it because I'm a little slow on the posting, but I saw a march with Israeli women and mothers and Palestinian women and mothers. And we need to hear more stories like that. That happened on, I think, Sunday or Monday. So there are forces of good out there. And so I will look for those moments of connection. I'll look for collaboration. Where can I collaborate together? Because that's one of my values. Where can I be of integrity in how I use my voice and what I say? And even spot a lack of integrity when I see it, even if it's from someone who I was hoping was going to have more integrity. How can but just because I say that doesn't mean I need to point a finger at them. I just need to be able to be clear in myself that it's out of alignment for me. And my value of, what else can I say? Creativity. How can I see the space in between the noise, the space in between the words and the violence? I look sometimes, because I've had some violence in my own life at times, I've had to learn to look at the space in between it, like attacking words, to not just look at the words that come towards me, but look at that space in between and what can I fill in there? Can I look at the space instead of the words and look at that? And that's the way I use my creative out of the box thinking to do that, to bring air into it, to not make it darts, to imagine things that are coming towards us going a different direction, to use our imaginations in a way that can help transform to a world we want to see that has more love in it. That's the goal for me. That's what my values point to. I am love. I usually have that sign behind me. You are love, or each love. So my values help me point to that. And so that's the values lens on this, rather than it being only one way. What's sustainable? That's what I said about sustainability. Not sustainable to spend a lot of time online. So I don't know if that resonates for anyone else, but that was my hope, to have a conversation, because the more I'm at peace, the more I can bring peace.
That's right.
Yeah.
And hold the space for that amidst the sorrow and grief. And I'm not saying that anyone should not feel the feelings that they're feeling, or the grief, because there's a lot of grief out there. I spent a lot of time with that feeling and sadness and tears around that too. The collective sorrow. So
I think that was very powerful and very beautiful, Amy, the way that you stated that. I think just really that lens back on oneself, and how you can start to see things differently based upon your values, and see through your values. I mean, because that's everything to me. That's everything. That's where the power is. It's like recognizing our shared humanity. And for me, one of my values is life is sacred. So what that means is that all life is sacred. All life is sacred. Whether I agree with someone or I disagree with them, whether I would have them in my home or not have them in my home. It's like everybody has a right to exist, right? It's every living thing has a right to exist. That's my value. Right. So constantly seeing the world through that place, and again, leading with compassion is another one of my values. Right. So it's like, how can I understand and see where people fail, and where they miss the mark, and where they're in confusion or fear or whatever else that it is that causes them to do the things that they do. Right. And to have a level of compassion, not to agree with it, but to understand that this is part of humanity. And and we all have that within us. We all have the capacity to do great good and to do great harm, given certain circumstances, and given whether we're connected or disconnected. And so anything that happens is not so far out of the realm of what's possible for my own experience. So then I can reflect back on that, and I can see, oh, here's an opportunity. Here's where this person is in darkness. Here's where this person is so disconnected from their own humanity that they are acting from a place of harming others, or doing things that are not helpful, that are not loving, right? And to me, it's always about just being able to take all of that in, like take all of it in, all of the good, the bad, the whatever is right and wrong with this world, and recognize that it's all part of it, right? That learning and struggling and doing well and doing a crappy job, and it's all of that. And how can I contribute to making it better? What can I do? When I'm standing in my values, when I'm solid, when I'm grounded, I have more power at my disposal. I have more access to making a difference than if I'm in fear, if I'm in judgment, if I'm in other places. So it's always coming back to that. And my values keep me there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And right. So and we are in a space where we are in the safety of our own homes right now. It is knocking on not knocking or coming in and taking our children or harming us in this moment. And there are no bombs or our electricity off or water on, like that is not happening. So we have that privilege to be able to sit here and have a conversation and open our hearts to all of it and hold that space to the pain of everyone. And solving why and where it came from is a whole other conversation that needs to be had with hopefully thoughtful people and mindful people. And let's get some women at the table, not women who pretend to be men, but actually feminine women. That's for another conversation. What I want to mean, I mean about that, but holistically seeing the problem as opposed to aggressive hierarchical structure. So that's what I meant by that. But the idea of pain and suffering and what it means to be human and how we can feel all of that and sit with our discomfort of that and stay with that.
It's funny. What comes to mind is that living in Washington, we used to say, "Oh, that problem is higher than my pay grade," right? And so when we talk about when people refer to wars, and it's like, "Oh yeah, I can't handle it. I can't deal. That's higher than my pay grade." But what my pay grade does include is the environment that I'm in and how I treat my neighbors and how I treat my family and how I treat myself sometime when I'm beating up on myself for not doing something that I should have done. So whatever is happening out there is happening in here on a different scale, and I have to admit it and deal with it.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely.
Well said. And that's what we can control. The willingness to see that, the willingness to see the parts of us that can relate, as Sheila said, and you said, Christine, and the self-compassion of our humanity and the vulnerability of what it means to be human to various different degrees. And the complexity of systems in our world that are corrupt at the most basic level. There's also, war in and of itself is sometimes, I guess, necessary, but it's, what we're seeing too is just again, it's a visceral world right now. Everything is right in our face in a different way than ever before. So I think that some of that is a powerful conversation, and we see the manipulation of it all. The fake stuff, having conversations that aren't false narratives and things like that within that, and being able to sort through all of it. But that's the same thing within us. We have lies we tell. I tell myself lies all the time. The story that I'm telling myself, this or that. But when we do the values work, because it's already established and we commit to a set of 5 to 7 values, it provides a reliable framework and context in which to view things. I'm not wishy-washy on it. Integrity, I know what that means for me. I can be honest with myself. Oh, I was kind of out of integrity in that moment. That's interesting for me. Can I course correct and come back in? but it's kind of saying, but I've put a stake in the ground and I said, no, I'm going to live with integrity. What that means to me, not what you tell me I'm supposed to do for integrity, but what that looks like for me. And so, or flourish or be creative or whatever, whichever value you want to pick, but having it as kind of a solid, reliable source. It's like our portable advisory board for whatever situation we're in. We can ask it and go do it and go, hey, creativity, hey, collaboration, hey, value, what do you think? What can I do that could be different? And how can I see the situation differently and make a different decision around it? And none of that negates the pain and suffering and the grief and the sorrow and the fear that is happening right now. So who else would like to say something or add to the conversation? Terry, are you trying to come unmute?
Yeah. Now I can't see everybody. Oh, now I can. Okay. So I was just thinking about, and it seems like a controversial thing to think about, but how the people in the Gaza, I mean, they had no choice. They have had no choice. It's been called an open air prison. And I worked with a friend running a kindergarten for a while. And she believes that creativity is the requirement for, having a creative freedom and a creative outlet is the way to having ourselves free of these things called resentment and hatred and the acts and acting out violently, that being able to have a creative outlet and having it be something you can do every day is essential to being able to live in peace, if that were to be possible to make that leap. And I think there is a sense of just such desperateness that would cause the people to even agree to have such a violent outbreak, that there's I mean, it's as if there's no sense in living. So let's do as much damage before we die as possible. I mean, if you have nothing and you're basically in a prison, what do you have left? I mean, if you take everything away from each of us don't know what we will do. I think we all have the same nature at the very most basic level of and I can say I don't know. I have seen myself do things I wouldn't have predicted when I've been stuck with some really hard decisions in this part of my life. And I still am stuck with some hard decisions. I'm now responsible for my younger sister, and she's addicted to so many things having to do with propping up her self-esteem. I mean, none of it is a drug, but none of it is really good for her and don't allow her to plan for a future. And so I'm left with planning for her future.
Right.
And it creates we grew up somewhat as friends, but sisters always have a little bit of difficulty with each other. But I can't be her friend this way, in this position I've been put in by my parents, to oversee the proceeds from the house and split it between the three of us, and that I'm responsible for dispersing it to them as needed, not just give it to them, because both of them would throw it away. And that's a known. And I'm guaranteed on both sides that that would happen. So I have to, I mean, so I'm left in this position, and sometimes I feel like I can open my hand, and other times I feel like I have to keep my hand really tightly closed. And it's all very, it's all really having to line up with values, and having to line up with not imposing my values. I can't impose my values on my sisters. And that's a hard thing, because one of my values is preparing for the possibility, having insurance, having a way to take care of myself when I can't take care of myself. And neither of my sisters have planned for either of those. And yet, because we're over 65, we all have insurance.
And
Anyway.
yeah, I mean, it's true. I appreciate the challenges of that, the difficulty, the duality, the dialectical, holding two things at once, wanting to be a sister and also being in charge. And I was moved by what you said about sometimes I open my hand and sometimes I close my hand, because I think that's also what we're just talking about. We can see that parallel in the Middle East too, the confusion. In some ways, it's all a sibling argument. I remember when I was in Israel for my daughter's bat mitzvah in 2016, we went to Tel Aviv about the founding, when Israel became a state. And I'm not going to go into the politics of it, but as a mother, I'm going to just share this as a mother. And the British moved out. They left it a mess, totally a mess. They took no responsibility for anything. The UN arbitrarily gave land to different things. And if you looked at the land, the way that the small size of New Jersey, of Israel, it was smaller then, it was insane. And I was thinking about my daughters who share a room, who fight a lot, right? If you did that to their room, there's no way there wouldn't be like in complete conflict. And I'm oversimplifying this, but you were bringing up sisters, and I do think it's an important thing to recognize that this was like a setup from the beginning of not working. There's been a ton of mistakes and poor decision and greed and money flowing into the extremes in different parts of each situation. I'm not talking about that specifically, but there was a tough setup here from the beginning. As a mother, I could see it. If I divided my kid's room in the same way that this small part of land was divided, there's no way there wouldn't be immense conflict. And I can understand pain, but there's a quote by, do you all know who Viktor Frankl is?
Yeah.
Yeah, Viktor Frankl wrote, Man's Search for Meaning. And I pulled it out recently to reread it because I haven't read it in a while. But he says, everything can be taken from a man. And this was him when he was in the concentration camps. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. I don't believe that you have to go to violence. I believe some people believe that way, but that is a choice. And to make that okay as the only choice is a loss of humanity, I think, a loss of a freedom from the outside. Everyone has to own their choice in it on every side of the situation. So that's where I would say our values lie, in our freedom to choose not only our attitude, but our way, our actions, and what we do now. And that's the difference. And that's why explaining things the why is like, who knows? We can make tons of suppositions about why, but that doesn't really get to the root of it, as we can say. So it's complex, but using our values can help me go, okay, this is something that, go back to Viktor Frankl. He lived through something and has wisdom to share. And how can that help us see this situation differently in a way that encourages our understanding, but doesn't also whitewash it one way or the other on any of it. And that we can be angry at terror and care and sorrow for people at the same time. Angry at terror and sorrow for the people. So it's, at the end of the day, mothers, sisters, children, grandchildren, right? Neighbors. That's what we're talking about, people. And somehow we've lost our way with remembering that. And
Yeah. Attitude is our essential, I guess, last value. I mean,
well, it's how our values get expressed.
Express our values through our attitude. Yeah, because I have the worst neighbors I've ever had in my life, and they aren't here part of the year, and it's really pleasant. And they just started being back yesterday, and I could tell this whole attitude came up of, wishing them ill. I'll just put it in that big category, just wishing them ill. And I think that doesn't line up with my values.
Right. And that's when you can see that's the self-honesty. And we're almost at the end, so I'll end here, but that's that self-honesty that it takes. When I said earlier in the conversation, it takes courage to live our values. Recognizing that attitude is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I have my own for another conversation.
Yes.
Our attitude is our choice, is what Viktor Frankl said. How we choose to weigh. If we can be honest with ourselves, have our feeling about it. Our feelings are fine. You can have anger, you can feel rage, you can feel the feelings you feel about the situation, but what we choose to do with it in the moment is our essential freedom as a human. And how we can bring compassion and understanding to it. And instead of black and white, right and wrong, the power dynamics of that ultimately cause war. And we may not be able to control whether that happens or not. We for sure can't, but we can do our part within ourselves to focus inward and be as in alignment with what matters to us and our values as possible.
Yeah.
Little by little, every day, drink the water that we can. Write, share our ideas. Right? Be creative, find a creative outlet. Walk, dance, enjoy the moment and be present. Love on little babies. Connect with our families. And love others' babies too. Right? That's so important too. So, because that's the point of it all, really. And our values help us just be that version of ourselves that can take us there, give us the attitude to make a different choice in how we do things. Each one teach one.
Yeah.
Any final, we're almost there, but any 10-second final thoughts? No?
As always, this is thought-provoking, learning, turning inward, reflecting. It's all very powerful, and I love these conversations, and I'm glad that we get to do that every month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a dialogue.
Mhm.
Hopefully. Start something.
Yeah, I think self-awareness, having our values as something we are aligning ourselves with, and staying self-aware and not living our lives as if we were always in our ideal self, but realizing there is an ideal self to go toward, and that we can catch ourselves not being there.
Right.
Mhm.
So true.
Mhm.
Thank you for being here. And if things come up or after a while, you know, sitting with it, because we talked about some deep stuff here that has both personal and larger impact. So I'm open to receiving your note or call or text. If you like.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, Christine. It's always such a pleasure to have you join us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Next month, our 11 on the 11th of the 11th month at 11 a.m. or 11/11/11, it will be 3 years of doing the
Oh
11/11.
my God. Wow.
Believe, right?
Oh my gosh. Wow, wow, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
it's on a Saturday.
It's on a Saturday. Okay.
Yeah, is it? I think it is. Yes, it is. It's on a Saturday. Yes.
Save the date.
All right. Ooh,
All right.
okay.
Thank you.
Blessings.
you
Thank
all.
you so much. It was great. Thank you. Bye, everybody.